Welcome back to another episode of the Successful Lead Generating Coaches Show. I'm Arfan, and I have some amazing expert guests with me. So I have Kyle and Ariel Tresch with me today. Good afternoon, guys. How you guys doing today?
So good. Good to see you, Arfan.
Yeah, it's so good to see you. And every single time we talk with you, we always talk about some things that are really, really cool. And maybe some things that we talk about today are stuff that maybe your audience hasn't heard before. Yeah. And we're just excited to dive in. It's a huge honor to be here, especially seeing the growth that you and JoJo have both had. So it's our honor to be here.
That's awesome. So I have these two on my show, and it's a really close place because I've worked with Kyle and Ariel. Me and my wife have worked with them as coaches. But more so than that, they have a really great amount of experience, and they are the founders of an amazing mentorship program called Couplepreneurs, where Kyle and Ariel equip other entrepreneur couples with proven strategies that they need to rapidly grow their business in their relationship and really grow to seven figures and beyond without growing apart in the process. We can often hear that when some people go and start working in business together, one of the things that happen often is they start butting heads and causes a lot of conflict and issues there, in addition to also the battles and the struggles of entrepreneurship. So these two are excellent when it comes to this topic, and I'm super happy to have them here today. And they're going to share with us what they call the Couplepreneurs Blueprint. And this is how to build a successful business with your spouse. So I am super excited. So without further ado, I want to toss it back over to you guys. So if you can just, share with us your journey on, how you went from being a married couple to becoming successful entrepreneurs and building multiple businesses along the way, helping dozens of other couples also build their businesses seven figures and beyond. Can you share your journey a little bit with us for the audience to get a little know more about you too?
Absolutely. So I'll kind of start with, it all started with what we call the anti-honeymoon phase that we went through, or the anti-honeymoon stage. So Kyle and I both kind of came from humble beginnings. We grew up in a very small town in Ohio, in the middle of cornfields and the whole gamut. And we actually dated for 7 years before we got married. And we both had separate businesses during that whole time, during the time that we were dating. And by the blessing of our businesses, we were actually able to self-fund our dream wedding in the Bahamas, which was amazing. And I remember when we were getting married, obviously we had a great relationship up until that point, but we thought we were both entrepreneurs. It's only going to get better from here. But that's not exactly what happened. In fact, because we became so quickly focused on our own individual pursuits, what ended up happening is we really started to neglect our marriage, and we experienced tension in our relationship really for the first time. And if I can say so myself, some of the biggest tension centered around Kyle thought the answer for the issues, the challenges that we were having was really for me to just become his assistant in his business.
And that was not the right option at all. So yeah, as I'm sure your audience could see if they're watching this on video, if you could tell by Ariel's expression, me having Ariel become my assistant was not the solution to having two entrepreneurial people work together in one unified direction. But at the time, there was nobody we could turn to. Yeah. We didn't have a group or a community of entrepreneur couples that could give us advice. So we had to figure it all out the hard way. And what happened is that instead of having a honeymoon phase, we had an anti-honeymoon phase. Literally, it was the hardest time of our entire life was after we got married, because we got married, we went back to our house, and both of us were working on our separate businesses on two sides of the house. And what we were doing is we were both growing and we were both successful, but we were completely driving in two different directions. Yeah. We had two visions in one household. And as we like to say, if you have two visions in one household, two visions creates division. Yeah. So we had a lot of division in our household, and the division really came from whose responsibility is it to take care of the cooking, the cleaning, the laundry, whose vision was more important? When do we stop talking about work? When do we start talking about work? When do we take time to take off our thoughts about work and turn on romance mode when we want to go on a date with each other and actually be present with each other? These are some of the thoughts that we had that we could not figure out an answer to. So yes, I thought making Ariel my assistant was the best option. But that only caused more tension. That only caused more fighting. And I got to a point where I was literally in a guest room of our house praying out to God for an answer, because I was like, what in the world do we do here? How do we handle being two entrepreneurs in one relationship. If she doesn't want to join forces with my business, then literally, like, what is the other option?
Yeah.
And I remember just sitting there praying out to God, and I get off the bed and I get on social media, which is literally the last place on earth that anyone should go to look for answers for life's questions.
Yeah.
But lo and behold, I got on social media and I saw a live video that Ariel was doing for her business.
Yeah.
At the time, she was an organic marketing coach, helping various different women build six-figure businesses using just social media. And she was doing a live training on that topic. And underneath her live training, I saw comments from women all over the world saying, Ariel, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom. Thank you so much. Because of what you are sharing and because of what you are doing, we have the opportunity to grow our businesses. And at that moment, it clicked to me. If I was going to take Ariel's light and put it under a bushel, I would be depriving the rest of the world for the gifts that God gave her to shine.
Wow.
So literally that kickstarted this entire journey for us, because I ran out of the room when she was done with her live video. I looked at her dead in the eyes and I said, hey, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
You're an entrepreneur and I'm an entrepreneur, and I never want to hold that back again. And in that moment, I asked this one question that literally changed everything for us. And that one question was this: how can we take our individual passions and point them towards a unified purpose? As a result of that question, we started changing everything. We started changing the way we approached our life, the way we approached our business, the way we approached our marriage. And it didn't happen overnight, but slowly but surely, we were able to have more intimacy as a married couple.
Yeah.
And what happened is when you have more intimacy as a married couple and you set up systems and processes in your life to align your strengths towards a unified goal, even with separate businesses, what we discovered was we actually had more fun together than ever. We felt more aligned than ever before. We felt like actual married partners that were like excited and had this spark again.
Yeah.
It's like we created the actual honeymoon phase, went right after the phase that we were supposed to be enjoying. So what happened is not only did our intimacy come back tenfold, but what happened is that as our intimacy came back, our income absolutely exploded.
Yeah.
And it's so crazy because prior to that, we were just banging our heads against the wall. But you know, it's like what I've heard before. There's a quote that says, you don't have business problems, you have personal problems that show up in your business. Yeah. And once we figured out the personal problems, it showed up in our business. We all of a sudden had more clients than ever before. We were making more money than ever before while going on more date nights than ever before. So how that pertains to what we do today is, you know, how if you go on a date night and you don't post it, it didn't really happen.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? So what we would do,
you gotta post it.
That's right, man. It's like cold plunging or going to the gym. You're always going to know who does that because they're going to post about it. You never have to wonder. Same thing with date nights. When we would go on these date nights and we would record these little stories and we'd post it on Facebook and Instagram, just having fun. And people would reach out to us and ask us, Kyle and Ariel, how in the world do you guys do what you do, working together as a couple and running businesses without wanting to kill each other? And we're like, we figured it out the hard way. But after we got asked that question enough, we realized that there is an entire community of people out there that people are not speaking to, that are dealing with these same issues of navigating business and life and finances and family as a couple that runs businesses together, because we're all wired differently than the average couple. So we decided to step out in faith and create an entire community that serves that exact audience. Since then, that was January of 2022, we launched Couplepreneurs. It was almost an instant hit overnight. And since then, we have now grown. What we're very blessed to say is the largest community of entrepreneur couples on the planet. And we get to work with couples all over the world, helping them grow businesses to 7 figures and beyond without having to compromise what matters most. And we do that because of the hard lessons that we've learned. And we're just very blessed to be able to share that with your audience today.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's one of the reasons why I got you guys here, you know, is that you could tell already the energy behind this this dynamic we have here is very powerful. And this is coming from experiencing it, actually experiencing it, being in the trenches, right? So after you said all that, a few things that kind of came up, right? So you mentioned a few of some of the challenges, right? But currently in the market right now in the world, what you see working with the couples you work with, like what would you say are you know, some of the top unique challenges that couples face when running a business together, not just individual, but together? And how have you navigated that, or what's your advice on starting to navigate those?
100%. You want me to start?
Yeah, go for it.
I would say one of the biggest things that we've seen, and this comes after hundreds of conversations coaching other entrepreneur couples. Usually the biggest tension between a couple, husband and wife, etc., is unmet expectations. It's the number one thing. If I can go to the root of the majority of the relationship tension that entrepreneur couples have, and to be honest, probably most just couples in general. It's that one person has an expectation of how reality should be, and the other person either does not know that that expectation exists, or they might know it but feel so pressured to meet the expectation because it takes them out of who they authentically are, and it creates this very strange dynamic. Now we could dive deeper into that, but I would say that that's probably the root. And what this shows up as practically is, at least for the couples that we've worked with, a lot of the times the couples are not aligned on their expectations in 4 core areas. Number one is the vision for their life. That's why when couples come to work with us, we have them do a vision date exercise where they map out a unified vision for their life and their family. Because so many times many couples are like how Ariel and I used to be, where we had 2 different visions in the household. And at the end of the day, if you're growing a business and you and your partner are not fully aligned on what success even looks like, then all we're doing is climbing a mountain that never ends.
Yeah. Not to mention, especially as a couple, whether you're in business together or you're 2 entrepreneurs in a relationship with separate businesses, sometimes the success of one person can be the failure of the other person. Because if the ultimate ideal success for me is being able to grow a business that I can like stay home and live in my house in Florida, and Kyle's ultimate vision is to like travel and do all this other stuff, there's a conflict there, right? So it's really important for the couple to be aligned on where they're actually going and how the business or businesses will actually take them there.
Yeah. So that's the first area that so many couples are not aligned in as it relates to expectations. The other 3 areas are goals, roles, and action steps.
Goals, roles, and action steps.
Goals, roles, and action steps. That's it. Like if we just, and this is just constantly, we're refining the data and understanding where couples are so we can tweak them and allow couples to see more success than ever before. But once you have a vision in place, how do you actually set up milestone goals to make that vision a reality? And if those goals are not aligned, whether it be quarterly, monthly, or weekly between you and your significant other, it creates a lot of tension. And again, that lack of alignment, just like if you were driving a car and the tires are not aligned, what happens? Right? If you drive a car and the tires are not aligned, you're literally going to wear and tear and destroy the tire, right? So we need to take time to align on the vision. We need to take time to align on the goals. We also need to take time to align on the roles. And what I mean by roles is you and your significant other, if you work together, it's very important to know how can you maximize your God-given strengths and talents, and how can your partner maximize their God-given strengths and talents, and how can you both step into your power without having to step on each other? You know what I'm saying?
Powerful. So absolutely.
So for us, one of the biggest life changes for our dynamic, and we teach this to our clients as well, is to divide up roles, not by department, not even by strengths and weaknesses, but by something we call energy styles. And an energy style is basically looking at Ariel and asking myself, what type of activities does she do that gives her the most energy, and vice versa to me, and split up action items and tasks by that, not by quantity or department. That we can go deeper into if you want to, but that has been huge for us. And then of course, action steps is pretty self-explanatory, but you'd be surprised. There are so many couples who just, they might have the vision, they might have the goals, and they might even know their own strengths, but they don't know what the next step is from this point. So we've discovered that if we can answer all 4 of those things, we could take any sort of couple, regardless of where they are in business, and break them through to the next level.
That's awesome. And each of these topics are a conversation on their own in the sense of being able to sit down and do it. Because I remember we did that vision exercise, and that was a few hours. It's not just a willy-nilly 5-minute, in between passing on the hallway. Like you're going to be very intentional about this. I love that. It's very powerful. So, one of the things that really stood out to me is that your overall mentorship program for Couplepreneurs that you talk about, it's not just helping entrepreneurs grow in their business, but grow together, right? And part of this, you develop and you work with them to have the right strategies in place tactical wise for their business and also tactical wise for their relationship, right?
Yep.
So what are when it comes to, you working with someone, you want to rapidly scale them or get them to a goal, right? What are some of the strategies that you kind of sit down with to help them with to really just say, okay, this is where you need to focus on in order to get from where you are now to clear to clear the expectations and to get things in alignment, in other words, to now be able to have a vision for 7 figures in the future.
Yeah. Do you want to start?
Yeah, I guess so.
Okay.
Absolutely. So essentially, if a client comes to work with us, and this is after working with clients across a variety of different industries, so it'd be online coaches, financial industries. It could be, what are some other niches we do?
Health and wellness, relationship coaching and therapy as well.
Agencies,
all different kinds
a
of
lot of
businesses.
different service-based businesses, essentially. Even though we've worked with so many different service-based businesses that have different niches and different revenue levels that they come to work with us, there's usually like a few core things we could do like almost within a couple weeks to just completely turn their revenue around. So I would say the very first thing, especially if anyone's listening to this or watching this and you already have an established business, one of the very first things that you could do is take a lead inventory, meaning you look at all of the leads that you've already generated and you create a time-based offer for those leads and offer it to them within the next couple of weeks. This is something that everybody could do. But an example of this could look like, we have a client that runs a med spa. And for her, we saw that she had a med spa membership, and we looked at the LTV for her clients, and we realized that for every client that she gets in this membership, it's $200 a month, but the average person only stays for about 6 months. So her LTV is 1,200. So what we did is we put together a cash infusion campaign, which is basically a time-based offer to the leads that she already has to offer them essentially a 1-year membership for $1,500. To the client, that's a ginormous savings, but to the business, that just collected an extra $1,500 upfront and it expanded the LTV. So that's something that
nice.
Somebody could do immediately. And you can apply this towards any business that you have just by looking at the leads you already have generated, the money that you've already spent to get the leads now, and ask yourself, what could we offer them to get these people off the fence and into an exchange of value and an exchange of money in order for us to pad our profits more. And then with those profit margins increased, now that you have more capital, you can then invest it into other things like advertising or refining the marketing campaigns to take what you already have done and leverage it to get even more sales. So I would say that's one of the very first things you could do. Would you agree with
That's
that?
awesome. And I want to say, I want to ask you guys a question. In your experience working with couples and implementing strategies like this, like a lead inventory, those who are having like conflict or at the point where they started working with you because they want to grow together, they want to come closer. How does this impact the energy of their relationship? Just implementing something like this and seeing a cash infusion, a cash injection come in weeks rather than months later. A lot of coaching programs teach you stuff for months later, but this is something that happens in a few weeks, days even, really, depending on how you do it. So anyways, let me give you space to answer that question.
Yeah, it's a great question. And I would say the biggest thing is what we see with couples is usually within the business, one or the other partner is focused on the marketing and the sales, typically. Like they both are, obviously, but there's usually one that's kind of heading that up. And when the sales and the revenue generated isn't quite what the couple or maybe one or the other was expecting or wanting, there can sometimes be the tendency to want to put blame on the other person. Now, again, most of the couples we work with are really great couples. They have an amazing relationship. But just like any human, when there's some stress, when there's some challenges, when there's just some pressure being put on them, it's easy to look at like who is to blame? What's the external reason outside of ourselves that we're not reaching the goals that we have? And so when we're able to do something like a cash infusion, that not only gives the like one person an immediate dose of motivation because they're starting to see their efforts come to fruition and actually give them an ROI, but so is their partner. Their partner starts to see that. And as a couple, it creates this unification of like, okay, what we're doing is actually leading to results. And if we can do this, we can do anything. We can tackle anything together. So it creates this really beautiful synergy, I would say. When you start to see some results in your business, it actually makes you feel more unified. It actually can impact and roll over into the relationship as well.
It builds more
Love
trust.
that.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah,
if
I love
Ariel's in
that.
charge of marketing and for years and years and years, let's say I don't see results from it,
Yeah.
it could create a little bit of distrust in the relationship. But all of a sudden, if she does a cash infusion campaign and I'm like, holy crap, you just generated 40 grand. Like, that's amazing. The trust is now rebuilt amongst the couple. And
Yeah.
now there's hope for the future.
Yes.
Because we're both aiming towards a goal and we see evidence that the goal is possible and tangible.
Yes.
Love that. That's awesome. That's awesome. Very cool. So when we talk about the couple more, like this, the couple dynamic and working together, one thing that really seems like really crucial to making it something that is, especially scaling the 6 figures, is really about creating the systems and the processes for staying aligned, right? So what are some examples of like couples doing this successfully? Like what are some systems and processes for really just staying in alignment together, to not only grow the business, but also being in a relationship and growing together?
Yeah. I could take that.
Oh, go for it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I would say there's two main things that we do. The first is making sure that they're aligned on their schedule. And the reason why this is so important is because as an entrepreneur, you kind of have an idea of how you want things to be run, right? But when you have two entrepreneurs, whether in the same business or even separately, being aligned on your schedule allows you to minimize those unmet expectations that Kyle was talking about. So when you both have a schedule and then you're both following that schedule, Kyle knows what I'm doing, I know what he's doing, and we're both aligned on what's actually happening throughout the week and the measurable progress that we can make in the business. So I would say number one is aligning on their schedule first. And then the second piece of that is what we call having regular check-in meetings. So these check-in meetings are like for us, like a daily 5 to 15 minute check-in where we're just sitting down and going, okay, this is where we're at in our business. This is where we're headed. What are you doing today? What am I doing today to get us closer to the goal? And what this does is not only does it allow you both to see again that you're in it together, that you're both taking measurable steps towards what it is that you want to create, but it just keeps you on the same page, because when you have unmet expectations that pop up, that's what creates tension. And if we can eliminate those unmet expectations by every day just coming together for a very short amount of time and just knowing, okay, here's what I'm doing, here's what you're doing. Okay, we're going to come together at this time. Like Kyle and I will go, okay, we're going to eat lunch together at this time. We're going to stop work at this time, and we'll determine those things in advance. So then that way, if 6 o'clock rolls around and we've determined, okay, we're stopping work at this time, we now know that that's what we're going to do. And there's not that unmet expectation of Kyle's still working and I'm ready for him to be done. And I thought we were going to eat dinner at this time. And like, there's all these things that we create that tension. So number one is just aligning on the schedule throughout the week. And then number two, to kind of like keep that schedule intact, is having those daily check-in meetings and check-in points. Anything you would add to that?
So I really like that, because one of the underlying things, and you guys didn't really say this, is that this increases communication at like a super level. All of a sudden, it's like now we're communicating on, really focused on the same task, as you mentioned earlier, just having that vision for what you're going after. But absolutely, Kyle, if you want to add on to that too, please.
Yeah.
One additional simple system that everybody has heard before, but maybe people don't recognize how powerful it is to have regular times to date each other throughout the week. It's traditional wisdom for people to hear, to go on a date night, right? Everyone says that. But what we've done in our coaching programs is we create fun contests and accountability challenges where couples literally compete with each other to go on consistent date nights, and we give away prizes for people who are the most consistent. And we've had couples who have literally generated $300,000 and more in 1 month, hit record revenue numbers, and still come to us and say, hey, that was great. We've made more money than ever before, but you guys holding us accountable to go on dates with each other is the most valuable part of this program.
But those date nights, man,
it's crazy. It is absolutely wild, because when you have the accountability system in place to ensure that you do the things that you probably already know you need to do, but you actually do it, what you get to do is you get to remind yourself of why you and your partner are together in the first place. It's not just to grow a business. You're also with your partner that you get to share intimate moments with. And we want to make sure that we keep that spark alive.
Yeah. I will also say too, just to add to that, there's a difference between going on a date to check off a box,
Right.
and going on a date that's like actually where you're actually present with each other, and that's actually quality time with yourself, with each other as a couple.
Yeah.
Versus a lot of couples go on a date, they go out to dinner, and they spend the whole dinner talking about business, which is great. We love to talk about business, but at the same time, it can reach a point where we're always so focused on the future that we're not really present and connecting in the now. So I would just say there's a difference between checking off a box and going on a real date night where you can actually be a couple and not just business partners.
Yeah, we have like techniques for that for days of like how to turn off work mode and turn on date.
I was gonna say that's one of the things when we worked together. One of the biggest pieces was there's like it was a workshop where we talked a lot about the transitional piece of the questions to basically transition from work mode into date mode. So work mode doesn't go into date mode, and now you have a business meeting on your date or something like that, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
So that's awesome. So there's a lot that goes into the business, a lot that goes into marriage or a partnership along the way, right? So when it really, so date night is one thing, right? So other than that though, like how do you help couples to like really find their right balance between the business demands and making time for family, health, and of course each other?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll start and then I'll give
Go
it to you.
for it. Hit it.
So one of the things that we do with couples when we first start working together is help them to create a priority hierarchy. And we typically like to call this more of a seasonal priority hierarchy. And what I mean by that is we believe that life comes in seasons, right? Just like nature, life comes in seasons. And when you and your partner are able to align on what that season looks like and create a priority hierarchy, or just, label your priorities in that season from 1, 2, 3, 4, it allows you to actually prioritize what matters, get done what you both want to get done, and be on the same page with like, so in that season, are we prioritizing growing the business? Are we prioritizing spending more time with family? Whatever that looks like, it's important to be aligned on that. So what we do, for example, is, we'll say, okay, for this season, where are you in your business? What are your business goals? And like, what's your stage of business? If your stage is, you're in a hyper growth season, then the number one priority spot may be business for this season. Now, it doesn't mean that it's more valuable than family. It just means that, if worst comes to worst, we may decide, okay, we may put a few more hours into the business for this season versus, going to the gym 6 days a week, we might go 5 or something like that, right?
Yes.
If we're contrasting business versus health versus relationships and maybe spirituality are kind of the 4 big areas that we consider. Then in other seasons, sometimes it's like a maintenance season where maybe the business is doing really well and you really want to focus on spending more time with your family. That's something that we need to discuss and be aligned on as a couple and as a family. And that's what we help our couples do as well. So really just determining for each season that you're in, which we recommend kind of reviewing this every quarter, what's your priority hierarchy for this season? Is it business first, relationship second, health third, and spirituality last? Like just depending on where you're at and what your goals are. Is there anything you'd add to that?
Yeah. So how anybody can apply this is to just look at your life and rate your area of satisfaction in all 4 of the big core arenas of life. So business, relationships, spirituality, and your health. Out of those 4 areas in this season of your life, which one requires the most attention right now? And again, like Ariel said, all 4 of them are very important.
Yes.
Ideally, we want to progress in every one of these areas every single day, and it's totally possible to do. But in general, a priority is something that will dictate the highest level of focus in this season. Because listen, it would be very super compelling for us to just simply say, you can always put business last, and you could just set up some automations, and you could sit back on the beach, talk to your family 23 hours, 24 hours in the day, and money just spits out at you, and you're going to be ripped, and you're going to be spiritually on fire just by doing that. But the reality of life is that you reap what you sow. So what this means, though, practically speaking, is if we're in a season of life where business is first, our relationship is second, spirituality is third, and our health is last, like for whatever reason, we just feel like we are super healthy this season and we need to focus our time that way. What that means is that we are aligned in the sense that we will allocate more time, more energy, more resources towards business and less towards our relationship. Contrast that. We've been through seasons where it's the 100% opposite, where Ariel and I have been in a position where our businesses are going great. We feel spiritually on fire, but there's just some areas of our health that need to be addressed. And on top of that, there's some areas of our relationship that need to be addressed. So
Yeah.
quarterly, we will say, okay, well, health is number 1, relationship is number 2, business is number 3, and spirituality is number 4. Based on that, that basically becomes our code and the lens at which we look through making decisions as a couple.
Yeah.
So if we can figure that out ahead of time, it filters all decisions by, hey, are we prioritizing what matters most right now or not? So we've been in seasons where we have gone really hard in the business. We've had seasons where even during some of the hottest times to market and sell, we have like completely take our foot off the gas because we knew that we needed to address what was happening in our relationship.
Yeah.
So that would be kind of like a code, something that every single person could do now. And it's just like when you practice in the dojo or in a karate center with pads and foam swords. If you can get that right ahead of time, then by the time life hits you and comes at you and fights you, you already have this priority hierarchy prepared to fight back without any friction.
Yeah, I'll just give one last practical example. How this showed up in our life, for example, was, if we decided we are going to go to the gym at 5 p.m. And we decided that health in that season was over the business. Well, if 5 p.m. rolls around and we still have more work to do, what do? We've already determined that health is the priority. So we're going to stop working and we're going to go to the gym at that time, like we said we were going to, because that is our priority and we're aligned on it in that season.
Now, I do know, with all that being said, that could, to a lot of people, everything we just said will probably be perceived as, wow, they just work a lot. They don't actually spend a lot of time with family. How do I actually spend more time with family?
Yeah.
The reality is that if you're in a season of hyper business growth, there's a way to communicate to your family when business starts and when business stops. And as long as you agree on when business stops and you can be present and you can show your family that you are there for them, that's amazing. You're also going to have seasons where family is more important and you can decide when work starts and work stops. And as long as your family is in agreement on that, then everybody wins. Because again, just like we said earlier, when the expectations are not aligned, that's what creates the biggest problem.
Gotcha. See, everyone listening right now, I want you to reflect back on what Kyle and Ariel just said. And I want to point out something that at no point in this conversation did they say sacrifice.
No.
And that's a big buzzword that kind of goes out, that, you have to sacrifice one for the other. Exactly. And it's so important that that work can throw you off a lot. But when you look at it, just a hierarchy as far as and it's a season. It's never a sacrifice. It's just a prioritization and looking and coming together and making a mutual decision. So it's not one person making the decision versus the other. It's coming together and making it together. So I think that's very powerful, right?
Yeah.
Just transition a little bit when we, again, working together as a married couple or just as a partners. It's never a case, whereas everything is all smooth sailing. There's always disagreements and conflicts that will eventually come up. What are your advice for, what advice do you give for just resolving them productively?
Absolutely. This is something we coach on a lot. So we kind of have a framework for handling a disagreement that could take any couple from a disagreement to making a mutual decision together. So I would say step 1, if you and your partner ever find yourself in a disagreement, step 1 is to simply do what you can on your part to diffuse your defensiveness. That's the very first step, because a lot of times this one step is the domino that could either fuel a fight or fuel a solution. So if I'm having a conversation with Ariel and let's say I am really excited about launching a mastermind. This is a real scenario, by the way. This is actually something we literally disagreed on. Okay. So years ago, I'm like, Ariel, we need to launch a mastermind. It's going to be great. And Ariel's like, yeah, I don't really agree with you. Now, in that conversation, I have a choice. I could respond by thinking Ariel doesn't respect my credibility. She doesn't respect my perspective. She doesn't understand that I have the information that I have and that she doesn't see the vision for it, man. I could literally have that thought. And that is me taking it completely defensively. Or I can, in the conversation, just feel that desire to defend my point come up and just diffuse the defensiveness, feel that defensiveness and let it fade. And that opens me up to have a conversation objectively and actually understand where she's coming from. That's actually step 2, is to define your partner's perspective. So once you diffuse the defensiveness, you can define your partner's perspective. Meaning, when Ariel says, I don't think we should launch a mastermind, instead of me going, you think I'm wrong and you think I'm an idiot,
Mhm.
I say, okay, if I'm hearing you correctly, your perspective that you're saying is that you think this is not the right idea right now. And then she can have the opportunity to either confirm or deny.
Yeah.
Right. And
Gotcha.
in this particular case, what she told me is, no, Kyle, I really like that idea. This is just the right idea, the wrong time, because it would require allocating resources in a specific way that we just currently don't have available. That's really helpful, by the way. All you couples watching, usually you have a go person and a no person in a partnership.
Yeah.
And it's really helpful to have that tension because it keeps you from going off the rails.
Yeah.
So in this particular case, we've defined our partner's perspective, which takes us into step 3, which is to determine which partner has more data.
Yeah.
So let's say that Ariel says, hey, I believe that a mastermind is not the right option right now because of the resources. At that point, if we still disagree, we go to layer number 3, which is determining, okay, if you have one point of view, Ariel, and I have another point of view, between the two of us, who is exposed to the most relevant data to make this decision? Because at the end of the day, when you are making decisions as a couple, especially that impact business, the goal is to not figure out who's right, is to figure out what's right.
Yeah. We're on the same team.
Exactly. So in order to figure out what's right, just like Arfan, reading ad campaign metrics and data all day long to help your clients get amazing results with Facebook ads. Same is true with making decisions as a couple. You want to look at the data that we both are exposed to and objectively analyze it and make the right rational choice to move forward. So in this particular case with the mastermind, I have had experience helping 7-figure and 8-figure businesses maximize their revenue by adding offers like masterminds. Ariel has had more experience working with more startup phase businesses, helping them scale to 7 figures and beyond. And based on where our business was at that moment, Ariel's viewpoint was actually more accurate to the situation at hand.
Relevant.
And relevant to the situation at hand. So then we're like, okay, so check in Ariel's department. But let's say we still disagree. Because sometimes, like you just really want
to go for it.
Yeah,
you go at it a little bit.
Yeah, you just still want to drive forward. Well, the fourth step is you actually find a third party to speak into you.
Yeah.
So this is why we believe coaching and mentorship is so important, because if Ariel and I still disagree after all of those steps, then it's just helpful to get somebody else who's already been there before.
Who's objective and unbiased.
Exactly. So they're not like your gal pals or your bros that are going to just defend you and your perspective no matter what. No, this is a third party expert, mentor, coach, counselor that can look at your situation objectively and say, based on weighing both options, we think partner A has a better option. So in this particular case, we did this because I was still so gung-ho about this mastermind. So we went to our coach, and we call our coach
the tiebreaker,
because we will sometimes disagree. And our coach was like, hey, based on where you guys are, I actually think Ariel's perspective makes more sense. And at that point, I'm like, okay, now not only do I understand Ariel's perspective, not only does she have more data, but based on the third party objective feedback, I think she's in the right here. And that takes us to the 5th and final step, which is just make a decision. Just decide. And what a decision is not a flippant choice of like, all right, well, we're going to try it, but I'm going to hold it over your head if it doesn't work. A decision is, okay, this is the information we have. This is what our coaches are telling us.
Yeah.
I might have a differing opinion, but you know what? We're going to move forward. And us moving forward is a decision that we make as a couple. So neither one of us could blame each other when it doesn't work, or neither one of us can brag when, oh yeah, I told you that would work. I've told you I was right.
Yeah.
We make those decisions as a couple and we don't turn back. So I would say that any couple who ever finds themselves in a disagreement about business or anything, you could walk through those 5 steps and find yourself going from disagreement to decision very quickly.
Yeah. And that's so fair too, because you really go through the whole gamut of first really releasing those emotions that first come up with hearing a no when you have something else like, this is so amazing, so good, and just so in love with it. I want to do this right now. And then it's like, whoa, hold up, buddy. No, take a moment.
That's it. Yeah.
Stop. So I love that the whole process. Thank you for sharing that. If you're listening right now and you're going through a disagreement, and it's been a few days, can you talk about that for a second? Like if it's been a few days, like if you, like I said, you mentioned the mastermind, you got to know, and you didn't deal with it right away, but it's kind of stewing up a little bit inside you, and it's been a few days. How what goes about dealing with that or handling something like that?
Yeah. So what I would say is when it comes to handling a disagreement, one of the biggest things is just how you communicate about it as a couple.
Yeah.
And Arfan, I remember one of the things that you said when we got the opportunity to work together was that you and JoJo do something called over communication. And I thought that was so good. It's so genius. And it's such a testament to the relationship that you guys have. But specifically, if something is like festering, just being able to communicate about it in a way that's as objective as possible and doesn't attack your spouse.
That's the big thing right there.
Yes.
That's the underline, highlight, bold, all caps.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. You can have a disagreement without attacking your spouse, without attacking their character, without using words like always and never, right? Like a lot of times what happens is something that's just a little disagreement turns into an all out fight because, you know, we start calling each other names or we start saying like, you always do this or you never do this. And that's when we're really starting to, from our spouse's perspective, attack their character, attack who they are. And instead of that, when you can look at, again, going back to being able to make an objective decision and remembering that you're a team, you're on the same team, even if you don't agree. Kyle and I don't agree all the time. We usually can come to an agreement, and it does, to your point, take some time. But it's just keeping the lines of communication open in a way that's not attacking each other. And we always kind of use that as a trigger of like, hey, we're on the same team. It's not who's right. It's what's right. And how can we come to what's right in the most efficient way possible?
And the couples that practice this the most are the ones that eventually over time come to respect the fact that their partner disagrees with them.
Yes.
I'm sure many
That's
people
powerful.
watching this.
I love when Kyle disagrees with me now.
Vice versa. Because I'm like, the fact that you have a different perspective allows us to make a much more balanced, objective decision, which impacts our business because we all know that the success of your business is 100% dependent on the effectiveness of the decisions that you make.
And the speed of the decisions that you make sometimes.
Exactly. So if we're going to make really good, fast decisions and we have two different perspectives that may differ, it allows us to have such a more holistic opinion and a holistic perspective on making the best decision for our business moving forward. So it's awesome because when solopreneurs run businesses by themselves, they have blind spots that they're not aware of. We all have blind spots.
Yeah.
We all do. And when you have a partner that can see around your blind spots and kind of close the gap on that puzzle piece that is missing in your awareness, man, things become so much easier.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I asked that question because I wanted you guys to give permission to someone right now who may be listening, who's like, hey, I mentioned something 2 weeks ago. We really, I got to know, but I never really discussed it fully. I never really kind of, gave it my all, like really look at this from my spouse's angle too, as well, that, the permission is there that you can, like, regardless of time between, you can still communicate about it. You can still have 100%. A conversation without stopping. So, absolutely love that. So, coming up to the end over here, I want to ask you guys just a few more, just really quick questions, right? So, in your experience, what are some common pitfalls or like mistakes you see entrepreneur couples make that honestly just jeopardizing their business and or their relationship?
Yeah. I mean, what you could do is you could take all the advice that we've given so far and then just do the opposite of everything we just said. And man, if you drive in the opposite direction of all those things, if you don't have an aligned vision, you don't have aligned goals, your roles are clearly undefined, you don't know what next steps are, and you blame your partner for absolutely all of your failures, that's a recipe for straight to the bottom. So I would say that you could kind of invert anything and just learn from what not to do.
Yeah.
I would say though, just to add to that though.
Yeah.
Just to add to that, because that's a lazy answer, isn't it? To add to that, man, I would say my mind took this in a really interesting direction.
I'm curious if it's mine too. So
I don't think so. We're gonna find out in real time.
Let's do it.
Entrepreneurs in general that we've had the opportunity to work with will sabotage their own success. And I would say that that's probably one of the biggest pitfalls that I see. Now, I'll talk about how this applies towards entrepreneur couples in a second, but just entrepreneurs in general, because we've had the opportunity to work with very successful couples and successful entrepreneurs that are hitting new strides in business. They're making more money than ever before. They have more free time than ever before. They have more responsibility than ever before. They're stepping up as leaders. What happens is there's kind of an identity crisis that every CEO plunges into. And this is the shadow side of business coaching. So we've gotten to see this early on, where if we help a company make millions of dollars, the CEO is wealthier than ever before, but now they're having a freaking panic attack because they have no idea how their sense of self can actually handle this new level of success.
Yeah.
So I would say that self-sabotage happens at every level, especially at the higher success levels. So one of the things that we have to actively do with our clients is to train their lungs to get used to the new altitude. You know how if you hike a mountain, the higher up the mountain you go, your lungs, the air gets tighter. So what we have to do is regularly train our clients on their own self-image and their self-concept to provide their minds with evidence that they too can handle this new level of success. They're not going to ruin it. Because if you fear that new level of success, you start backpedaling. Now, how this relates to entrepreneur couples is this self-sabotage shows up in the relationship. For Ariel and myself, if I can be very bold and vulnerable here, this has been one of the biggest struggles in our relationship is the amount of self-sabotage I put on myself after achieving levels of success that I've never seen in anybody in my family. I would freak out. I literally would be like, I don't know if it's right. I don't know if I'm spiritually aligned. I don't know if what we've created is what I want. And then I just start spinning out because my mind has no idea how to reconcile this new level of success with reality. And it shows up as anxiety. It shows up as depression, and it can bleed over into our relationship, even though once again, it's just a complete personal problem. So that's where my mind went. Was it different than where your mind went?
It was very tied, actually.
Was it?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm curious to hear Ariel's thoughts.
So very, very similarly, another pitfall I see with entrepreneur couples specifically is I think there's this very common belief that the more your business grows, the less time, energy you'll have available for each other or for your family.
Yeah.
And so along the lines of self-sabotage, what we tend to see is if there's a belief operating even in the back of your mind subconsciously that success in business will equal strain on your relationships, you won't grow your business
100%.
just flat out. Or you will, but then you'll sabotage it and knock yourself down a few pegs. Because again, if you have this belief, and this is something that I struggled with, I think we both did to a degree, but for me specifically, I came from a family of multiple divorces and they owned businesses. And so even though nobody ever said it directly, I saw my family go through divorce, separation, fights. And they usually, it's centered around money, how we were going to allocate funds, who was spending more time in the business versus taking care of the household, how they weren't able to see each other and spend time together. And after seeing this for years, it created a belief in my mind that if I was successful in business, it would cause more strain on my relationships. And so what happens? We start to grow the business, we self-sabotage because growing the business is going to equal more pain. So why would we do that? And so I think from a pitfall perspective, it's being able to objectively look at yourself and determine, do you have a belief like that could be operating in your mind? Do you believe that you can have a 6, 7, 8, even 9-figure company and still have an extremely rich and fulfilling relationship and family life? And if you don't, that's something that you really need to deal with because more success isn't going to solve that problem. So it's being able to look at that, acknowledge it, and really sort through it and find more evidence to the contrary. So what I started doing is I started looking at, okay, how is building a business actually contributing to our relationship and to, the time that we have together, the quality time that we have together. And I was able to see that, building a business would allow us to go out to lunch on a random Tuesday to the beach just because we didn't have a boss to answer to, right? And so I started finding evidence like that to support that, no, I can have a very thriving business, but also a thriving relationship at the same time.
Yeah, there's just something about grabbing Chipotle, heading out to the beach and having a good day, right?
That's right.
You know it.
Guac is our love language.
100%.
All right. Final question, rapid fire. We're not gonna dive too much into this, right? So someone who right now, maybe one spouse has been in business and they're looking to transition. The other spouse has been working a corporate job and they're looking to transition now, and they haven't worked together and they're not going to be working together, right? So we got that picture in mind, right? So what is rapid fire? What is your top 3 pieces of advice for someone that is in that position right now?
I'm considering all the variables.
Yeah.
So
go ahead.
you go first.
I was going to say, I think the number one thing I would consider is, why do you want to go into business together? And I know that sounds very simple, but sometimes what we do see is one person is already a business owner and they really want their partner to come into business with them because like they think it's going to maybe solve a problem that they're experiencing or solve a challenge that they're experiencing. And sometimes they can put some undue pressure on their partner to become an entrepreneur when sometimes that's maybe not what's actually going to fulfill them. So this is more like the precursor, I would say.
Good.
But the precursor is really just determining, do you both actually want to be entrepreneurial? Do you want to be in business? And if the answer is yes, then by all means, go full force into it because it's an amazing dynamic that can create so much magic. But just make sure you're going into it with both eyes open and you both are aware of why you want to be in business and what you both want to create.
And
together.
the reason why Ariel says that is because we know many couples who have tried to go in business together only because one partner thought the other person should be more entrepreneurial.
Yes.
And that's a recipe of disaster. That's actually a situation where we would say, don't go into business together, which is probably the opposite of maybe what you thought our answer was. But that's in that scenario.
Yes,
now, for the scenario that I think is much more likely in the context of your question is if somebody is going on full bore entrepreneurship and their spouse is coming with them, I would say the very first thing to do is to make sure that you both have a very clear idea of what success looks like.
Yeah.
This kind of goes back to the unified vision. If you have one vision of what success looks like and your partner has a different idea of what success looks like, two visions equals division. And you both will be going in two different directions. And therefore, if your mind is focused on a direction, what our brains do is it creates options to get us to whatever goal that we set for it. But if we have two different goals set, then we're no longer walking together. We're actually walking apart. So I would say define the goal would be number one. Number two would be to very clearly define the milestone steps to make those goals a reality, because we are very big practical people. We're not very woo-woo people. So what we mean by that is if you want to launch a new business, then there's some steps that you need to take, objectively speaking, and we have to be clear and aligned on what those steps are. Like if you're launching a brand new business, you have to be very clear on what your niche and your messaging looks like. You have to be very, very clear on where your ideal prospects are online. And then once you know the answer to those two questions, you have to be very clear on putting a system and process in place to start bringing those customers to you and bringing them into a sales process that actually turns them into a sale. And then once you make the sale for it, you have to know what the margins are so you can take whatever money you have and reinvest it into more marketing efforts to continuously grow the business. So that is number two, is like, make sure you have that piece in place, which is why I would say step three, although this sounds super self-serving, it is our honest answer, is to find a mentor. To find a mentor. Now, this doesn't have to be us, but it does have to be somebody. It has to be somebody that has gone where you want to go and could show you the ropes and could literally sidestep years and years and years of trial and error to figure this out. If you do not have mentors in your life, your only option is to figure out what you want to do by trial and error. But when you have a mentor in your life, they can shortcut time and energy for you. They can offer an objective third-party perspective that is outside of your blind spots, and they can show you the fastest way to get your goal as a couple. So those would be my 3 steps.
Absolutely. Love that. Awesome. Thank you guys so much. I so appreciate you both coming here, dropping gems and gems and gems of wisdom. If you're listening right now and you're doing entrepreneurship by yourself and you want to have your partner come with you, this is definitely some things to think about. Share this episode with them. Definitely, because it's going to help put you guys on both the same page. And before I wrap this up, obviously, we need to know how we can connect with you. How do we get a hold of Kyle and Ariel? How do we find, follow, be part of the largest couplepreneur community? Drop it all for us so we can make sure no one is left behind and everyone can be part of the couplepreneur movement.
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say there's 2 main ways you can connect with us. The first is our Instagram. So it's just at Couplepreneurs. So like couple and then preneurs. So that's our Instagram. Of course, you'll see our stories where we share our date night stories. We sing a little fun song that apparently people like now.
And eat a lot of Chipotle.
And eat a lot of Chipotle on the beach. The second place is, as you mentioned, our Successful Couples in Business Facebook group. So if you just go to Facebook and in the search bar, you search for Successful Couples in Business, our Facebook group should pop up to the top. And that's where we have thousands of other entrepreneur couples that you can connect with that understand what you're going through and are on a similar journey as well.
Awesome. So everyone, I will go ahead and drop those links in the description below. And so that way you can just click and be able to go and join there. But take the moment to go be part of the community, because I know Kyle and Ariel, the stuff that they talked about today, they go a lot deeper inside the free community. And if you have the opportunity to join them, to work with them whenever they have their cohort starting, or the group program starting, or one-on-one, whatever the case may be, definitely do it. They will definitely be able to change your the relationship dynamic you have together with your spouse, your partner, and also with the business combined together for tremendous growth. I'm a testament to that, as I've been clients of Kyle and Ariel along the way. So definitely, again, Kyle, thank you all so much for being with us, being with me today, and sharing this with my audience. And everybody, thank you all so much for listening. Don't forget to share this episode with your spouse, a partner, a friend, anyone you think will need it. And stay tuned for the next episode. I'll catch you all next time. Bye bye, everyone.